Yeah.
Don't.
We don't have a quorum.
So I am going to maybe skip the first 3 items on the agenda. Does that make sense? And we can push them till later, the acceptance of the minutes, the vote on the committee questions and the pollinator pathway vote. And
Sure.
we can do that later once we have Bill here. So Effie, do you want to speak to the process for finalizing the sustainability committee webpage?
Sure, I was kind of hoping there would be a bigger group to respond, but you received a copy of the draft I wrote, Kate sent out with the minutes and such for the meeting. And I just want to talk a little bit about the process I used to do the draft webpage. I only did the webpage for the city sustainability committee, just to be clear. There are a lot of pages related to sustainability, but all I did was the sustainability committee page. There are separate web pages for the Department of Planning and Sustainability. There's a web page about sustainability initiatives, which talks about Portsmouth being an eco-municipality and natural step. And a lot of that page is outdated. There's a lot of old links there. Not to blame any individual, it's just, I think the city capacity for that is limited. So for my process, I reviewed other Portsmouth boards and committees' web pages, and it's not very standard. So I don't think there are requirements that way. That's what I would guess looking at them. And then I reviewed sustainability committee web pages from other cities and towns in New Hampshire of a similar size, like Concord, Keene, and Derry. And it's interesting because official city committees might be called Energy and Environment or Climate and Energy or Net Zero Task Force, and they're all different structures. I did notice, interestingly for us, a trend in vacancies and absences, just quickly looking through the minutes. So misery loves company that way. But a lot of the committees are doing EV expos and sustainability fairs, unlike this committee where we have groups from CCAN, like Portsmouth Climate Action doing a lot, and we have kind of that cross pollination, I'll say. And then other committees are more involved in like city issues like solar arrays and stormwater utilities and things coming up for ordinance changes and like that. And then finally, I analyzed the existing webpage for the Sustainability Committee. And it really had a long description, and then the links on the right, that's kind of standard for the committees. And I wrote a draft that you got, and I walked through it with Jess, though we didn't have much time together. Our schedules were both with a lot of travel and busy things. But I thought if we could just walk through it, it's up on the board here. So the banner title is typical of committees and boards. And then the links on the right, that's also typical. And the last, well, a couple of things in the links. The minutes are there, and I don't know that that's possible for the city to do that, to have the minutes of past meetings there. But people have asked for them, and I don't know where to direct them right now. So I think it'd be good if it were there. And obviously a link to the climate action plan and then our new guidelines. We could put whatever we want in there, just to be clear. The ordinance setting this committee up, a link to Seacoast Climate Action Now, and a contact form. So that would probably go to Peter and Kate rather than individual committee members. And then the write-up, I have to say, and I can say this because I wrote it, it's too long. I can already see it's too long. Then it moves on, and it's good at the bottom. There's bullets because I think it's easier reading for people to have bullets. And then below that, there's the Sustainability Committee members. And I put name, appointment date, expiration date. I don't know how to word expiration date so it doesn't sound like we're going to be going sour or whatever. But some committees have addresses and phone numbers, but there's been some talk about that, whether we all want to have our, And then upcoming meetings are listed, and then the recordings of committee meetings. And this is just a placeholder there. They'd have the last few meetings. I think that was it for the draft you got, and I thought it'd be good. This is just my preference. I do a lot of writing and editing for my job. I would say we shouldn't set up anything that needs frequent updating other than posting links for the meeting videos and the minutes. And that's just really based on city capacity and being realistic about it. We don't want to burden the city with that. And then to keep things simple as possible, what I wrote could be edited much shorter. My ideal for the web is short sentences, short paragraphs, short pages. And this doesn't meet that really. And I thought as a group, if we could come up with a process where we were not editing by committee, I found it very painful. I thought it was a great product we came out with, the questions, the criteria. But I find it very difficult editing in a big group like this. So I wondered if we could come up with some other process, like a couple of us breaking off, not me, someone else, and having a draft before the next meeting for everybody to review or something. But I think it's in fair shape. It just needs shortening. So that's my whole spiel.
I will chime in and say that I think you did a really nice job. So thank you for all your effort.
You're welcome.
Some of the priorities for me, such as the minutes for past meetings, I know I've tried to find them just to remember details, and I've similarly had people ask, where do I find the minutes for past meetings if they didn't want to watch the video? So I appreciate that. And I agree with you that it shouldn't be anything that needs too much updating. My one thought is, you did that in sort of that bulleted part about all the things that we've played a role in. I wonder if it's appropriate or if there's a space just sort of to talk about current things that we're engaged in or additional, like, for example, if we are to vote tonight to collaborate with Pollinator Pathways, that seems like something that we might want to put on the website, it doesn't necessarily need to be like a monthly update, but maybe a quarterly, or every 6 months or something, like here's what, highlights, or I don't know. But those are my thoughts. Otherwise, I agree with you. I think less is more. I think just kind of bulleted points that you can kind of just quickly, okay, yeah, that's what's happening. That's what's going on. That for me personally is more user friendly. So yeah, thank you.
And I meant to say that I haven't met with city staff about this. So if that's required somewhere in the process, we should hear about
We'd
that.
have to get it put up there, so.
Yeah.
At some point it would be, but I think it looks good. I think it follows our other web pages kind of generally.
Yeah.
And I agree, shorter is better.
Looks way better than what's up there right now.
Yeah, it's just something that a lot of our pages need updating, and it doesn't rise to the top for some reason. Until someone says, if you looked at that page lately, and then everybody's like, oh God, we gotta fix that. So it's very helpful. I think the keeping it fresh piece, I mean, you kind of want to, like, in 2 years, 2024 climate action plan is gonna be 2 years old.
I
So
know. And even
it's gonna happen, but maybe there's a place where you can put the newer updates, not say what's new, but just the newer stuff goes in one place so that when we go back to it, just check that page part first, and we can put the updates there. And the rest of it can be kind of boilerplate that we update time to time, but doesn't have to be looked at every time we go to update it. Because if you look at other pages, there's problems throughout the page that stuff happened a long time ago and it didn't get updated. So.
And Jess, I like what you said about current things, like this starts with like the history of the sustainability.
Yeah.
Like put people to sleep right at the start. But that'll be up to the editors that
Right.
volunteer.
Yeah.
And we could assign people who are absent tonight to.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I like the idea of the update, and that might even tie in with, Bert, I know you've been wanting to talk about the state of the city's sustainability. sort of side. So maybe that's, if we do it every 6 months or every year, have a blurb of what our state of sustainability is there too.
But number one, again, just delighted that um, this is a professional document and your skills come through. And that's a gift to the committee. And so I like what I'm seeing, and I'm playing with, we're a voluntary committee.
Right.
So that's tough. And I'm thinking about people who are present or not present. And so I'm a little bit going afield from the document. But I know that other committees I hear have a little committee work guidelines. Like we have a one-pager. I'm wondering, I'm thinking aloud here. What if when people come on a committee, they have skills? If there are specific jobs, one of the jobs being, and I'm thinking about the young woman who isn't here tonight. I think she said she wasn't going to be here. Yeah, Riaz, she said she couldn't make it, but she loves editing. And so one of the things we could have in our guidebook, is there somebody on the committee who has the skills, who, when we have the state of the thing, will be going, and start to get some people to take it on. John Kennedy took on the rotating chairpersonship. So I'm thinking if we spelled it out so people could make a contribution that would be reliable and demanding. I mean, if you make that to commit to something rather than just come on the committee. And so I'm playing with that as an idea. And I don't know if that already exists, but I thought that might get the editing part down. And also somebody who would want to be on the committee who would enjoy updating. And so also when we look for new members on the committee, we might look for skills that aren't already existing at any.
I mean, most committees just have a chair and a vice chair. There's not really defined roles spelled out, but that doesn't mean you couldn't do it.
Say that again?
Most committees have a chair and a vice chair. They don't necessarily have defined roles like you're talking about, but you certainly could do that if you wanted to. I mean, if it's something that,
Because I was thinking like, when Bill gets here, is going to talk about the packet, with your idea, we should give those guidelines of the questions that Bill would, to the new
to
person.
new people.
So I think we could have in the book, here's what we do when new people come on board. And this is part of the process. And anyway, that's what I was thinking. So the institutional knowledge, it's carried on a little bit. Particularly, I think if I only live to be 98, I only got another 12 years or whatever it is.
The one link, which I think might be worth considering adding, is the building policy that the city has.
Okay.
It's recent and it'd just be something good for people to know exists. I know it alludes to it further down in one of the bullets, but. Yeah, the green buildings.
So what are next steps?
Well, given that we have such a small group tonight, I don't think we have volunteers to step up. So an alternative process, if people like it, is we could send it out and say the meeting was thinly attended and we're looking for feedback about this, not commas and semis,
Right, content.
but content or ideas about how to edit it down. I don't mind being the person that gets all that feedback. The thing is, people have to understand two people could be saying different things about the
Yeah.
same piece of writing. So you know, there has to be one editor. I don't have to be that. I mean, I'm happy if someone else wants to.
Well, I like
but-
the idea of just trying to shorten it. I mean,
Yeah.
because you're right, you don't want too much. And
Yeah.
if there's too much here, then if you send it out to everybody, you might end up with more instead of less.
Okay.
How do we,
So send out a shortened version.
if you want to do a shortened
Yeah.
version,
Sure.
we can go through, there's a couple things that we typically capitalize city, for instance, a couple of editing things we can do. And we can read through it and make sure everything sort of reads right in
Okay.
terms of what it's referring to. But I think if you make it shorter, if that's, to me, that would be helpful. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's too long. I'm kind of responding to what you said. But I think it does help if it's shorter, because
Yeah,
people don't need to read a ton. Especially if there's links and other things there,
right.
then it's nicer if it's compact. And I like the bullets.
So if anyone wants to take it on, you have to speak now or forever hold your peace.
I would like to say that your writing, and it helps, it does another purpose. It helps me learn about what the committee is. And so by your sending it out, you don't even need to say, for my thing, say thinly attended. We looked at this the last meeting, we've edited it down. Would anybody who's looking at it, anything more to edit, you want to keep it simple? And then I would read over that, and that helps me learn. And that's what we're trying to do, I think. Use the process to get on the same page on the committee. Because I think everybody who comes in this committee might have a different idea of what the committee is, what it does, and how they're participating. And I think some of that's good, but I think this is the type of page, and what Bill's gonna bring up is for me, so we're kind of on the same page. And I think if you're willing to do it, I would love to have it.
Sure. And you know, what's kind of fortunate is I have to miss the September meeting. So you all will be left with,
We could talk about your editing.
yeah, the final version. I'll be watching the recording. Great. So I think
Okay,
that's,
so
yeah.
you're gonna edit it a little further to shorten it up and then send it out to all the committee members.
I think I'll send it to Peter and Kate first for like city
We'll just
type
clean it up.
editing.
That's-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
city form,
sounds
Okay.
good.
And then it would go to the whole committee before the next meeting.
part of the packet.
Yeah,
Got it.
right.
Okay.
Good.
So yes,
I just want to check. It says, on here it was Chaz was going to facilitate, and then, who's taking minutes tonight?
says
Said
on the
Josh.
agenda, Counselor Denton.
Does it? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I'm slacking here.
I was wondering.
You want a pad of paper?
I'll take some paper. I have a pen.
I have paper.
And my
Got
thought on my notes is that rather than take down all of the conversation as much as just maybe the topic and the decisions, so it's easier for people to look at them, or if there's anything really. Anyway, that's.
Yeah, that's good.
where I'm thinking
Short.
we go.
Short is good with minutes.
I agree.
A minute.
Okay.
So the next item is the button up workshop. We'll put that on.
Is it just an announcement?
Yeah, and I think Bill might have asked me to put it on there, but,
Well,
October.
I do it.
Oh.
Tracy, who had sat on the committee, made the presentation. The button-up workshop is until October. And so she said she wanted to put the committee's name as one of these supporting organizations. And I said, well, that'd be great, but why don't we bring it up at this meeting? And she said, great. And then I wrote her that, I said, I'll bring it up at the meeting and we'd love to support you. And then she wrote me back, Well, they want to do the publishing before the meeting. And so at that point, with a few help from some friends, I said, all right, I'll take the authority as the chair of the committee and give her permission to put the committee's name. All right, so I think that wasn't a big deal because she'd already presented and so forth. But I'm also wanting to let you know that I'm seriously trying to learn what it means to be chair of a standing committee as opposed to a blue ribbon committee. What it means for a horizontal leadership position as opposed to a vertical. And we have, those are two big paradigm shifts, and we're doing a combination. So in essence, I think it's better for us all to be involved if it's significant. But who makes the decision whether it's significant? And what does the chair have the right to do? What can I, what can I commit us to? What can I not commit us to? That's a really, I don't have an answer to that question. If anybody has any guidelines from other committees, I think it'd be good to articulate those. Maybe just get one sentence in the meeting about this topic.
I can only think of one example that might help answer it. When something like we're putting a grant application in for something, we typically will say that the chair can write a letter of support. But if they don't get a vote from the committee, then they shouldn't say the commit, like if it's a conservation commission. The chair could write a letter saying, I support this grant application to do wetland buffer protection or something. But if the chair, if we have time and it goes to the committee can vote to support it and the whole committee can support it. So things like that, I would think would need a vote of the committee to say, we fully support this
So
endeavor.
when I signed the letter, like to the mayor,
Yep.
it was chair of the
That was
committee.
just you. Yep, because we
That was
didn't have
just-
time to get it before the committee for
Right.
the deadline for the,
Now, if the whole committee had voted and I signed, I say, in
I would just say sustainability committee. Yeah,
chair of the committee or the committee or something
something like that. Yep. Yep. In the letter, it might say the state, in most of those types of letters where there's not three people writing the letter, it would say, the committee support, or at a meeting, they voted to support, or whatever you want to say, but you can fully say the committee supports it when you get that vote. Without that vote, it's kind of a gray area. The committee probably does support it, but without that vote, you can't document it. I think that's the key.
So whatever we do in life has some risk. That was a little risk that I wanted to take. to
Yeah, I
find
don't
out.
think it's not saying the committee supports it, it's just saying a partner, so it's even a step back from that.
And it will be out at the center. Cat count.
Community campus.
Anything else you want to say about that, Bert?
No, thank you for listening.
I'm gonna jump around a little bit, since we are sort of talking about community engagement stuff, the Community Engagement Committee is on here as one of the agenda items. Is there anything specific? I do not put that, I mean, I can tell you.
It's just a running item.
Yeah,
So,
so last night we had our climate change and children's health community climate conversation, which we had about 20 people in the room.
Nice.
Definitely some new faces. It seemed to be a positive response. I heard after the fact that it was a good conversation and that people learned a lot and took away something, and the presenters were knowledgeable, and it is leading to the city talking to New Hampshire Healthy Climate and a program they have about kids' health called Chicks. So I don't know if anything will come with that, but it seems like an interesting connection. So that is good. And our next one is on Tuesday, October 1st. pretty sure is the date, and that one is about adaptation and resilience. Same place, same channel, same time. 6:30, 11 a.m.
In October, right?
October 1st. Yeah, it's a Tuesday. Some of these other things, I'll try to wait for Bill, but I also, it's not on the agenda, but I just wanted to offer. I mean, it seems a little unnecessary considering the current attendance, but I wanted to at least get it on the record, a recap about the 100-acre woods in the Cavaretta property. Because CELT did present to city council on Monday night for about 5 minutes with their proposal for acquiring the conservation easement for that 94 acres and what they hope to see in the future happen. Several community members spoke to it, who have been longstanding community members involved in conservation or various perspectives. I spoke to it, trying to start to link our climate action plan into some of the actions that are in the climate action plan, that why it would be beneficial to support the effort. I know there's further outreach that's going on right now to try to get more community to engage and express their support of it, but there are site walks that the city council and public can go to next week. One is Monday
At
from
5.
5 to 6.
Yeah, that-
And the other one is Wednesday from 12 to 1.
When the 5 to 6 was.
Is Monday.
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 Monday,
Yep.
5 to 6 p.m.
And
where do we-
Wednesday.
where do you meet?
At that entrance, I think at the driveway to the property on Ellen Road. I forget the address.
The address is
8:20.
820 Ellen Road, but it shows up
17.
closer to 7:38 or something like that.
And then my understanding is that the council will vote on it at their September
Yes, that's
3rd
the- Oh.
meeting, so. For anyone who has not commented, and if you want to send an email or go to the September 3rd meeting,
I have a question, Jess. When Bill comes, do we have a quorum?
yes.
Okay, because it'd be nice to have a letter from this committee supporting it.
Mhm.
I'd like to do that.
Support that.
Good.
Just remember the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
Because I watched the recording of the Conservation Commission when they had the full presentation from CELT and then heard it the other night at the
When's the next city council meeting? September?
3rd.
3rd.
All right, so we would need the letter in by next Wednesday.
I think you're right.
Tuesday. Tuesday at noon, they tell us. Counselors
Tuesday.
get a different date,
Councilors get Wednesday at noon, okay. So
but that's okay. If people vote tonight, then.
Yeah.
It's enough to do.
I'd imagine there's something already written.
Yeah, probably could be easy to pull that up. But if you had certain things you wanted to put in it, we could add that too.
Do you have your, what you said written?
Yes.
We could just add that. Behind it too.
Yeah, and I think it could be a short letter.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
connecting it to the climate action plan and say it comes from this committee. That's going to be the oomph.
Yeah.
I don't remember verse and line where land trusts are in the climate action plan. Or if they are as such, if it just says something about trees.
It's more open space and conservation.
Open space
protection.
and trees.
They could have
Yes.
land trusts.
CSLU2.
What's that?
CSLU2, I remember from my letter.
Well,
That's the one
wow.
that specifically talks about either acquiring
thought you were talking about she did.
private land or public land that we already have.
Climate smart.
That's great. We could put that in the letter and it'll really blow people's socks off.
Yes, I didn't quote it or anything, but I did.
This
Just
might be the
passed.
first time we're actually using the plan.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Go Jessica.
And according to Action CSLU2.
Yes.
Is
There
everybody
you go.
smiling inside because we are in a
Yeah.
technological era where you can just do this what we're doing. I'm just amazed.
This is perfect. Great.
Nicely done.
Thank you. I read that thing like 14 times before I went to the meeting on Monday. Um. So I am happy to help. I don't know how that works. I can help to draft that letter. Do we need to, you want to help me edit? Do we need?
I'm happy to do whatever. I think in this meeting, we have
need
to agree
vote
on
to
the
a-
key
Yeah, but if,
things that are gonna be in the letter.
right. And
that
vote
we
that we
can
want
word
to
it.
do that as a committee,
Yeah,
but, if we do, then I'm
sure.
happy to help with the letter.
You know, I know we didn't vote on accepting the minutes, but I want to get this off my chest because I've been carrying it for months. In July, there was no quorum, so we couldn't accept the minutes. I get that. But the June minutes need correction. So I brought them to July, couldn't do it then. So I bring them to August. I just don't want to lose track of them. So I can wait till Bill comes, but I can tell you just to lessen the suspense. Acceptance of the minutes from May 23rd and April 25th at the June meeting. We were missing April 25th. And then Jessica Blasco provided minor edits to the April minutes. So that's what I'm going to be saying when Bill comes. And we're going to vote on the minutes, I hope.
Mhm.
Kind of catch up on all the
Yep,
lack of
That's why I was just
quorums.
gonna start from the top once he got here.
And then a question on the minutes. We met July 29th to go over the climate action plan. You know, I know Bert was here, you were here. I think Bill was here, I was there.
Yep.
But I don't know, did we do minutes?
I took minutes.
Okay, do minutes.
Put them together.
Was there a
It
quorum?
was,
Forgot, there
it was
one.
reviewing the cap. And people had sent in comments. I know Bill and I did. I don't know how many people did,
Yeah.
but then we went through the whole thing.
Yeah,
We're here
And you had the
3
room for
hours.
3 hours.
That's good, because I remember getting like 20 minutes into it and thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't assign a minute taker, so I started taking minutes, but I never wrote them up on the computer. So
And I
I'll
would-
get that. sent
I would
out.
think minutes that say we met and
Yeah.
discussed the.
Yeah.
climate
Who was
action
there?
Plan
Yep.
and,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
attendance is what would
Yeah.
be.
that would basically cover it, but
yeah,
anything else is gravy.
good.
And if we're doing edits, I noticed, in the June minutes, or maybe the July ones, Rayanne's name was spelled 2 different ways, like once on the attendance and then once in the minutes. I don't know which way is the right way.
So that's the same person, Rion and
Yeah, so,
Rayanne.
yeah,
Yeah.
spelled RH.
Oh, I think this is how she spells it. 'Cause
Okay.
I went
so
in and fixed
If you
these, 'cause I
go
added statutes.
so somewhere down there,
2B.
Uh,
Whoops, 2B.
yeah,
I see. 2B. Okay, July.
that's my error. I didn't know how to, I just phonetically sort of.
Oh, yeah, I went through and said I was gonna fix the name and I only fixed the attendance list. Um,
And so I just want to, which I think will kind of segue into one of the agenda items. I want to say nice job to Kate. I thought that your recap of the climate action plan when you presented it to the city
Thanks.
council was really well done. It was thorough and gave a good picture and, but yeah, it was just kind of helpful, I think, for everybody to hear what the process has been and kind of understand where we are. So thank you for your effort and work on that. And I'm also gonna just say, Counselor Denton commented on implementing the plan and starting to look at the CIP.
We did
Uh,
have a work session that night.
Yeah, Counselor Cook, noted both the Sustainability Committee for their efforts and Portsmouth Climate Action. Counselor Blaylock noted the middle school kids and talking about their solar projects, which was really cool. and Counselor Moreau talked about incorporating the cap into the master plan update, which was really exciting. So I feel like this committee already has some good work to start
Yep.
doing and supporting those efforts and being engaged around the master plan and the CIP and things. So on that note, I don't know who put CIP project submission ideas on this.
Bye.
Seems like a good segue.
It's the season, I think.
I think that that's really the leverage point and liability here. And I'm wondering, I'm thinking about last night's meeting, the CIP and leverage in this committee's function, so I could state that now before Bill gets there, unless we have something else to talk about.
I think everything else requires a vote, or, I mean, we can talk about committee topics if the group wants to, but
Sure. I have
Go.
one other thing that's kind of close to the CIP. So when we did the climate action plan, we had $80,000 and there's $20,000 we have to spend. And one of the things that I think that should go towards is the Bright Action. And the other one, so the issue is that 20,000 it's under ARPA money. And so ARPA money has to be assigned by December and spent. It has more time to be spent, but if it's not assigned to a project, it goes away. And we're really working hard not to let any of that money go away. So we've talked with the committee a bunch about extending Bright Action, I think, and I think that makes sense. And then the city can get behind it in terms of website and things like that, and maybe have more outreach, broader outreach, I guess. And maybe get more people signed up, is the hope with that. And the other one, we were talking about different ideas, and Kate and I had looked into a electric bike rebate program. But overseeing that all before December wouldn't really be feasible. And you can't really give the money out to someone to oversee it. It kind of has to be spent in the city. So we found a electric bike solar charging station with like a shade canopy and then station for 4 bikes to charge. Talked to the library director. She thinks it probably will work there at the library. So people could go to the library, plug their bike in, charge it in a solar canopy, and it wouldn't have to be connected to the grid or anything like that. So I think we can move ahead with that. I don't know if we need any, I mean, you need the city manager to approve it, but
It's under
basically a side.
$20,000.
Under 20,000.
That was the other huge constraint with trying to find something like.
That
we're
was the
looking
huge
through
constraint.
all the strategies and thinking, oh, we could do this.
I think it's like
It's
17. It's like 17. We might have a few more, two or three more thousand, but
Pretty neat. How big is it?
2 of them fit in a parking space. So you could have 8 bikes parked in a parking space, take up a
Wow.
parking space, but I know we don't like to give up parking spaces,
So
so.
we didn't change the ordinance. I know it's
Yeah.
it's not EV and everything else,
Yeah.
but that's really neat because they have the bike repair station there as well.
That's
So
why I
putting it
figured-
in one of
Yeah.
those spaces.
And it's a place where people have time, and it's kind of a city of appropriate city use for people, so.
And do electric bikes have a standard charger as opposed
like
to
an outlet.
car vehicles?
It's like a 110 outlet.
Okay,
I think
Right.
that's all it is. So
Right.
the ones, you can also get them, maybe we should do this too, but I don't know if we can afford it. We'll see how much money we can come up with on top of the money that we have. But they have lockers that you can
Mhm.
put your electric skateboard in and plug that in as well.
wow.
Not that a lot of people have electric skateboards, but in case they do.
I wish Bill were
Chaz
here
company does.
because
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, I'm just looking how it fits in the cap in the transportation system.
Peter, I just really like, because I was thinking, put a solar array out in the tennis course. That's even better. And I was thinking if there's any money for signage, if I could somehow do a informational input about something regarding the transition from fossil fuel to, I mean, like, I'm trying to think.
You can do something inexpensive with city signs.
Yeah, just, I mean, with the city sign, I'm trying to think of how we could, because I was thinking, when we talked about that originally, I thought about, putting on the tennis courts. It was so that it was visible
Mhm.
and that the city, or even say, this is part of the climate action plan, fits into this part, and anyway, so it starts to link to something.
I like that, kind of like a disclaimer you might see, like paid for by the IRA.
So in the climate action plan, DTS 5 in the transportation section says increase the usage of e-bikes, blah, 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 by covering part of the purchase cost at local bike shops, as well as by expanding e-bike charging stations and
Excellent, yeah.
infrastructure along key commuting routes.
That'd be great, yeah, perfect.
Boom.
TS5, we got 2 items. Not only would he use the cap, we could accomplish 2 items in it.
And would a letter to the city manager from the committee help getting approval for the 17 grand?
Maybe, but right now they're at a place where we gotta spend this money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly would help. Or I can say that the committee voted to support
Yeah.
it and we don't have to write a letter.
Okay, I think to put down, the committee felt this would be a good use of the money.
I haven't gone through the plan thinking we have 20,000. I have been thinking
Yeah,
about bright action.
We did
for
a little
while.
bit, yeah.
You have done that. And we don't have.
Well, I've been thinking about
some-
Bright Action all along, just because it's something that
Yeah.
we said we wanted to do more than 1
It's
year.
great.
But other things, we couldn't
Most of them came in too high.
find much that was under 20,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were really excited about the e-bike rebate program, and there's a lot of towns that are similar to us that do it, but that have a lot more money in the program.
Yeah, that's the problem, running that program with only 20,000, just to set it all up.
Yeah.
It'd be worth having a lot more money,
That'd be better as like a long-term program.
but it is a good one for the equity piece.
I'm
I think.
already excited about it because I just walked to the library so often, and it starts to create the culture that we want.
Oh, I didn't think about it.
I like that it's
We're gonna block
visible,
this sun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. It would have to be in the middle of the parking lot.
It wouldn't have to be in the middle of the parking lot, you wouldn't want it on the north side of the building. But that's the north side of the building, I think, isn't it?
Mm,
But there's
I don't
a
know,
circle
we'll look at it.
where you
but-
drop off the books.
mm.
Anyway.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
true.
that side's better.
We probably can find a place. Yeah.
Yeah. But when I go in that north entrance where the bike toolkit is, there's often bikes parked there.
No, that's why that
And
looks
some
like
of
a
them-
great spot.
Probably transportation from some people that spend a lot of time at the library.
Okay, so.
So Peter and I talked too about Bright Action, and I'll follow up with the order, the information for a purchase order. So,
Okay. And that was 2,500 for the year, right?
Right.
Okay. Anything else on that piece? So do we want to talk about committee topics, since it seems like we want to wait for a quorum for everything else?
Something else that I talk about. It's more again about the handbook, and we did spell out, but I don't think we ever followed through that. Any member who was not in attendance for 3 months, we talked about what are the expectations if somebody signs on for the committee to fulfill what the committee needs. And since we only meet once a month, somebody's gone for 3 months. That's a pretty long time. And I'm trying to think, what are our expectations? for being here and how high a priority it is. And I'm thinking, one of the things we're working out for the community conversation are those 5 words. We had 4, but then just added a 5th one that we put into the letter. We're talking about existential. We're talking about scale. We're talking about acceleration. The last one was action, and we were whatever the other-
Urgency.
Urgency.
urgency. So I'm trying to think, what does that mean for our committee? Well, some people, Allison just retired after 33 years on the Conservation Committee. Anybody coming on now, I'm thinking 3 to 5 years, things are gonna be dramatically different than they are right now, dramatically. Am I alone? So if we think that is gonna be dramatically different, then maybe our structure and expectations have to be different. Maybe our priorities have to be different. And so that's that, I was thinking about that. So just to be able to say it aloud, and I don't know if other people think about that, but to see that we're thinking about it. So it's one thing to kind of have it in your gut, and then to start to get the priorities shifted and commitments shifted. And that's what we want to do with the letter, with the plan, and so forth. So I'm thinking about maybe the best vehicle I'm thinking is our handbook. If we come up with a handbook. I hate myself. If anybody
Yeah.
suggests something in a volunteer, I say, you suggest it, you better be willing to do it. All right, I'm gonna put down for myself. Hate. All right,
I think what really motivated people on this committee was having a project that we all glommed onto, the climate action plan, and looking at climate action plans in different places. And now that we have one, I think we can look at this and take it apart and think which strategies do we really want to make our priority? And then push for them, however we do them. As a committee, we're only listed for like 5 strategies, and they're all to do with buildings. It was kind of weird, but we can do
yeah.
whatever in the plan anyway. We
Right, the
don't have to
champion
stick
doesn't
to
have
that.
to be what it says there.
Right,
Yeah.
the champion, yeah. So I think we need to, like Jessica has already memorized the plan.
well, she has a photographic memory, she doesn't tell us that.
I think we all have to do that.
Whoa,
Yeah,
forearm, yay!
Boy, do we have work for you. But good news too.
Hi.
Hi.
Before you, I agree with what you're going, I'm just trying to look at, when people come on the committee, get to the planning board. Who's not here tonight? Well, I'm thinking, for example, Lee. When he's here, he does wonderful, but is his life such that he's missed 4 of the last 5 meetings?
There you go.
Yeah. But the thing is, Bert,
And I'm not.
if we have a handbook that says people who miss X number of meetings, we'd ask that they resign from the committee or whatever. We need members. We don't want to get rid of members. So maybe a way of re-involving people, like we talked about this committee in the past as understanding the urgency of climate change, that we have to do things in between the meetings. Once a month is not enough. So maybe some of the people who don't make it to this meeting might be working in between meetings on projects but it's hard not having a quorum. It's hard to
Yeah,
get work done.
It is hard. That's why I asked Kate to bring this up because most boards have a rule about attendance and the one out clause is getting your absence excused. So what this says, I think, and
Okay.
Kate will find it exactly probably, but it says if you miss, I think it's 3 meetings, 3 unexcused absences, then you're technically can be removed.
Is
from the
that
committee.
in the ordinance or that? a separate
Excuse
thing,
me,
like
this
a
is the
handbook?
planning board rules and procedures.
So it's like
so
the
it's-
handbook that
Yeah.
Bert was
It's the,
describing.
yeah,
That's
every
what-
board has,
I don't want to kick
has a set.
anybody out,
Right.
obviously. But I want all of us to be realistic about if we're saying you come on the committee, we're saying, we understand that you're passionate about it, but here's what the expectations are.
Yeah,
That you,
And
unless
when-
there's a real good reason that
Yeah.
you're at every meeting.
well, and when people miss meetings, it's their responsibility to watch the recording.
Okay, that, we used to
know,
do that in
I
our course,
mean-
and then they used, yeah.
But I don't know if people like being told things like that.
Do
to be
we,
honest.
do we know why people are missing meetings? Is it lack of interest or too busy? I mean,
Well, I'd say, given the people on this, I don't think anybody who comes to this and volunteers is a slacker in their life. But what I'm saying, and this, I'm included. There are things that I can do every day, and I have to make choices as to what is most important at this time. And when I used to come to the Blue Ribbon Committee, I came and it was, after I got through teaching, it was a very relaxed, easy, fun thing. I'm saying, as a standing committee now, if people come on board, I think the expectation has to be different when we, from the get-go, that we have a small period of time and we're gonna be working stuff, hopefully to do something the best we can. And to do that, if your life, in terms of priorities, this has become a priority. I mean, I don't like leaving a lot of things, but I guess I've made that shift in my life. I've said, I do a lot of things in life. Right now, this committee, at this point, is the best lever, one of the best leverages I have.
but isn't the problem more not enough members? It seems like maybe before we crack down on members missing meetings, we should find some more members.
Well, I'm saying.
Otherwise, we'll,
Both.
you know,
Well, I'm also saying something else, and I'm actually exploring. Rather than be looking to try to get members that, and then coax them in, I'm saying raise the bar of what this committee is about. And that this is a committee, if you're on it, we are, if you're working with people who are all committed, you get a different synergy than people coming on and working their way in. And I agree, on the Blue Ribbon Committee, people came, went, some people contributed, some people didn't. I'm saying we're in a different position. I don't have an answer to it, but I think I'm looking at when you give, anybody gives up 2 hours of their time, that's usually 4 hours by getting it. That's a big chunk. We better be doing something. And I think we are. And it's messy. But I think, anyway, that's, so Peter, I'm taking my, we have that. I think well, no, I'm gonna leave it on. Ideas for our, what do you call it,
attendance,
no, our committee, guide
rules and procedures.
rules and procedure. I'm gonna put down a few of these things.
I just brought that up as there are examples in other committees, and I think just maybe the discussion with the committee that, you know, we've had meetings where we don't have a quorum on some regularity. And if you're gonna join the committee, the commitment is important. You don't necessarily have to get to the point of to get kicked off if you don't, or maybe you do, but it could just be the conversation about it's important that everybody attend, and if they're not gonna attend, give us a, notice.
Okay, let's put in the next meeting that we just, I mean, you got my star off. Mr. Note taker, next meeting, please put on expectations and opportunities around attendance.
So just a question. I know I'm going to miss September. I'll be in Norway. So who do I call? Who do I
So you
tell?
just let us know, we know.
Tell us and we'll tell the chair at the meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
By the way, let me know where you're going. All my relatives are.
very good.
Very good. Oh, there's a good university there.
Okay, so do we want to discuss that any further, or should we try to vote on some of these
I
things?
think we got, I'm all set.
Okay. So I'm gonna backpedal a little bit and go to the acceptance of the minutes from June 27th and July 25th. Bill, prior to your arrival, we had a couple of basic edits. Just about names, and Effie offered a couple that we are happy to repeat for you, if you would like. Or if you're all set, if somebody wants to
If
just.
Josh got them, I won't repeat them, but
Josh, do you need them for the notes?
Those were for
the June minutes.
June minutes, okay.
The June minutes said we accepted the minutes of May 23rd, but we also accepted April 25th. And Jessica's edits were to the April minutes, not the May meeting.
So we're,
Those were edits for the June minutes that we're voting on tonight.
and when we make edits to meeting minutes, does someone actually go in and change the meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, so Kate, did you get what needs to be edited?
For right now, right here. I got the June ones, but I didn't get the July ones. Was there a July one?
No,
For the
they
edits
were
for
all
June
June.
26th?
I
That's
said
just as
Sheila
edits.
about the name, about Rayanne.
Oh,
Making
right,
sure
right.
her name was spelled correctly and consistently.
And that Jess's edits were for the June meeting, not the May
Her
meeting,
edits were for the April minutes.
Okay.
Says the May minutes.
not May.
It might be useful to send the edits in an email.
It's always helpful.
Well, especially when we're going back from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if they're
Yeah, a bunch of old minutes. yeah.
editing discussion of meeting minutes and the meeting minutes.
Yeah. right. Okay. Section.
Does anybody want to make a motion to
I make
approve?
a motion to approve all of the minutes.
Second,
Second, I get to vote.
all those in favor?
Aye.
I think in the rules and procedures for, you should put the staff ex officio member or designee, and that way Kate is always a designee if I'm not here, and I'm a designee if she's not here.
I'm gonna skip the committee questions just because I feel like there might be more conversation and go to the pollinator pathways. So I think you were all here last month when Pollinator Pathways of New Hampshire came and presented to us and asked us to consider collaborating with them. I feel like this is really just putting a formal title to something that's already happening. The collaboration just includes education, which they were at Sustainability Fair in April. I'm sure they'll be here next year. It's an opportunity for us to get some word out about what we're doing via them. And I think now that we're editing our webpage, maybe it can just be an added link so that we are kind of connecting people to what they're doing. And I will be the committee contact for the organization, and Sandy Michaelides, I think that's how you say her last name, and Diana Fry have agreed to be the contacts for Pollinator Pathway New Hampshire when we need those connections and those collaborations. So in that spirit, I am gonna make a motion that we vote to officially collaborate with the Pollinator Pathways of New Hampshire.
I second that.
Great, all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
All right,
Not like to say because of you, when Bill and I were walking, we walked by a house in Maine, which just had a garden before. Now it's a huge garden, and in the front it has pollinator garden. So I haven't seen those in Portsmouth, have you?
not yet.
I think he's, the owner of that is I think he's a professional green landscaper, and he's done you may know him, Peter, he's done volunteer projects in Kittery. on the parks. I can't think of his name. We just always say hello to him when we walk by, but before he just had wild grasses and
Is-
now he
where
has
is-
all kinds of things.
Where's-
If you go over the bridge and you turn left to go by your Jumpin' Jays Inn, and then you sort of weave around a couple
Oh, yeah.
blocks, he's right on the
Oh.
corner there.
It's not
Keeping
who I
the
thought it
road
was.
pointed toward the second bridge.
So it'd be fun to start to see those. And I did talk, as I mentioned to some of you, at the farmer's market. To people were talking about Market Square and Prescott Park. I guess there's been some effort to put a pollinator garden in, but it didn't go. Maybe it's coming back. And it's time.
And I know Lydia's garden at Little Harbor was just redeveloped to be more of a pollinator garden. Well. One other thing, Bill, prior to you getting here, we recapped on the 100 Acre Woods Cavaretta project. And we discussed collectively having a letter from the committee go to city council prior to their September 3rd, 2nd, I think, the
Third.
Tuesday meeting. Collectively as a committee, but we need to vote that we all agree to do that, so.
So this would be to support the motion they were considering on Monday? 'Cause I just heard a little bit of,
Yes, so
Uh,
at CELT presented to them at this past Monday with the hope that the city will collaborate and give them up to $1 million from our conservation fund, which is designated for this purpose to help them buy the easement on the 94 acres. They're doing a site walk next week, 2 different times, Monday at 5 to 6 and Wednesday at 12 to 1. And then the following Tuesday, they will vote on whether or not they are gonna collaborate with CELT. And so this committee had discussed writing a letter in support of that collaboration and trying to acquire that easement.
And Jessica quoted the number in the climate action plan that referred to this kind of land use.
this was in the comments.
That's what I said on Monday, yes, but I remembered because I said that thing. so many-
Implementation, first
Yes.
action.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
it really is great because it fits so well, identified publicly owned lands or privately owned lands for acquisition, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So it's great.
So again, I will make a motion to draft and create a letter on behalf of the committee in support of that effort.
Okay, second.
Was that a motion or was that?
Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
motion.
seconded.
Okay. All those in favor?
Uh,
Alright, okay. So the next one is the committee questions and criteria.
Which we've renamed the guidelines. We say guidelines, AKA questions
Wait,
and
before,
criteria.
did you guys want to vote on the bike station?
Oh,
Yes.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
sorry, I
Sorry.
forgot about that one. That was on the back
This
of
is
my
good
notes.
news.
Oh, I'm sorry, were you gonna get to it? I just thought that's where it was, but
No, we can do either one.
I told them that there's money in ARPA money left after the climate action plan that we have to spend. We have to get assigned before December, and we found a electric bicycle charging solar charging station for $17,000, and then we're gonna put $2,500 towards Bright Action, which basically spends all the money. And they thought it might make sense to vote to get a letter, or at least to say our support to the city manager.
Right?
And we found in the cap where it's stated.
And we found
that
the
we
other
should-
action, 2 actions in one day.
Yeah.
And should we say that the library is our first choice? Because there's a chance they won't be able to find a spot in the sun, maybe.
I would say as a first
high
choice, yeah.
school,
in case we
second
can't-
choice.
yeah.
So to fund that out of the ARPA funds and for another year of Bright Action.
Yeah.
Great.
Is that for 4 bikes to be charged at once? Cause I heard you say 8.
It's for
Okay.
4.
Okay.
2 of these stations fill a parking space, so it's half the size of a parking space.
Got it. Okay.
'Cause some people put 2 in a parking space and
We
go with that.
Anyone next?
their cars
Really
do that
is.
next, yeah.
a great example of the city being best practice example for others like developers.
Yeah, and you don't have to plug it in. It just has its own battery.
So do we need a motion for that?
I would think so, yeah. So
Uh,
I don't know how,
I'll make it. So
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion that the committee gives its support for the two items discussed.
second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
It's nice to be able to vote.
So I think now, am I correct? We can do the committee guidelines?
It's busy.
okay, you see at the top, fifth draft. I almost wrote last draft or final draft, but I didn't have the nerve to do that. But I think by now, hopefully everyone is familiar with this. It's had the best and the brightest of our group thinking along the way. It came out of the interest in really defining our roles and responsibilities and offering some guidance to us as a committee and as individual members of the committee on what this committee does, what we've done in the past, what we're currently doing. You'll see at the bottom of the first page, that's really, this is the track change version. I think probably the only significant change was added the green buildings example. I mean, there were a couple things that people wanted to add and changed it to cover things we've done in the past as well as things we could do in the future. And I think the original thinking was that this is one page. Once you do not track changes, it's a single page, just laying out our purpose based on the ordinance and a very simple example, simple definition of what we mean by sustainability there in the paragraph after the 3 ordinance items. So that's the first page. And I think that the thinking has been that that's maybe an internal piece. We could do something else with it if we wanted to, but let's say if someone was representing this committee before another committee to advocate something on behalf of the sustainability committee, this could be translated into some couple of PowerPoint slides. This is what the sustainability committee is all about. That's the idea. Any thoughts on that? Then the next is we were calling an external facing piece below. Probably Kate, you could do the in the review show no markup, and that probably would be cleaner up at or just a clean one, yeah. Yeah, so that's the first page, and then you go down to the second page is the external one. And with a lot of great editorial help from Effie and the rest of the group, we tightened this up a bit, dropped a couple items and moved them up to the box, like those 2 bullets are things that were specific items below, but I think we decided that those applied potentially to all of the listed items and shouldn't be a separate item. These were things to keep in mind, like tools for doing the sustainability committee's business. I mean, things to consider when something comes up that the committee is interested in, like advocating for projects in the CIP. I think the 2 things we just heard now on the EV charging and the conservation land. I mean, I think we all do this sort of thing internally. We can't help but do that. But this is just a way of fleshing it out and formalizing it a bit. I think all of us have been involved in the last year and probably half a dozen different activities, related to affordable housing or last night, the Bike Ped Advisory Group. I mean, that's my contribution last night at the Bike Ped Advisory Group was go up 1 level for the Bike Ped plan and reference the CAP and reference the affordable housing initiative. And I think that probably that will be reflected in the goals because we've got reference, cross references to this. So I think this is really all about cross references and helping us to do it in ways that we do it intuitively, but maybe if there are other new committee members, this would be even more helpful as a guide. But that, I guess that's really as far as I've gone in thinking on how to use this. Welcome any thoughts on this as it is, or how we would want to use it if it looks like we can finalize it.
Yeah, I'm glad to see it here. I think it's final.
Good.
And it's one of the links in the updated webpage.
Oh, good. Yeah, and maybe it could be to the whole thing or just to the second part. What do you think? Well, let's decide whether to finalize this. Any other thoughts on finalizing it?
So the first page is supposed to be the internal one and the,
Potentially. The whole thing could be on the website, but I think we wanted something simple that you could have in your hand. Let's say if you were going to a meeting on the master plan, let's say if Portsmouth Listens is involved in that to help organize
Mhm.
the study circles on that, or as a help for contributing to the Market Square study.
So if it comes from the committee, does it get like the city seal on it? The letterhead?
probably.
We could put the city seal on. I mean, it's a committee in the city, so part of the city government. So we could put the seal on there somewhere. I mean, the letterhead
I just mean the
seal.
seal.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure we could find a place for that.
So should we finalize that and then we can talk about what to do?
I move that this last version be made the final for now version.
Yeah, this can be a living document subject to editing and updating, really, because new initiatives will come along that are fine examples.
I'll second that motion. And thank you for all your work. This
Well,
feels
It's
like it resonates. And it-
committee
yeah.
group, a committee product, I hope. We vote?
Yes, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, further discussion? Right,
I want to go a little bit around, but here. Last night at the meeting,
mhm,
there was a woman, Lisa, sat behind me, and she talked about the plastic turf fields
mhm.
and how bad they were, and then we had to help them. And I was thinking, I'm trying to tie this to this, that I'm assuming at some point that somebody had to put in the capital improvement plan, redo the football field and put it. So here's where I see these guidelines coming in. And Joshua, that's where I thought, when you were saying capital improvement, one of the biggest leverage points we have is somehow we get every one of you have to fill out, I believe, to make a capital improvement, you have to fill out a page. If we get some of these questions at the top, how does this capital improvement, affect social justice or social equity? How does it affect, and use some of the things from this paper?
Yeah.
And then in our state of the city message, this would be our recommendation. If we could get that into that document, everybody who's putting money in, whether they do it or not, are gonna have to think about it. And I think that's a big lever. That was just kind of I said, that's amazing that we might be able to do it. And I don't know if I'm too, I think it's a good leverage point for education and power. And now that I might be naive about that, but that's what I'm thinking.
Well, informally, let's say, one way to formalize this would be to take some of the items like, does this support the cap? Or what are the greenhouse gas emission impacts? Or does it consider equity? To introduce those as formal capital budget criteria along with all the other criteria. I mean, that would be one way of formalizing it. Another way of doing that would be to just talk about those in support of a project. I mean, there's nothing really to stop from doing that. If this was formal, we could reference it and say that Sustainability Committee has guidelines, and in the guidelines, it says to meet the purpose of the ordinance, that the city needs to be thinking about greenhouse gas reductions, implementing the cap, and equity, just those three things, making a case for or against a proposed capital budget project. And that could be done formally through criteria or just through advocating for or against a project.
And in the cap, it talks about incorporating carbon emissions and the cost of carbon as evaluation criteria in the capital planning and operating budget process.
We probably supported that through the input to the cap. So.
So Josh, I know that when I talk naive because I have never submitted anything to capital improvement plan. I don't know the process. Now, I just threw that out as kind of pretty naive. Is that already done? Is that unnecessary? Is it extra paper? What is your response?
So there's numerous ways for items to get in the CIP. I guess the official process through the planning department and sustainability, through the planning board, and they'll make recommendations, but we'll also have just regular citizens making recommendations for the CIP. You know, city councilors bringing their own ideas forward, and I don't see any reason why the committee couldn't submit recommendations.
Do other committees submit projects besides the planning?
Not to my knowledge, but I think the reason for that is because that's what the planning board does. It's planning. So.
Yeah, so I think other committees would do it through citizen requests.
Mhm.
And Portsmouth Climate Action, I think it was 2 years ago, did a number of requests we worked on together. I remember Allison had one for trees going in parks.
Well,
I don't
last
remember all the things.
night at the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting with the consultants, I guess this is ongoing from the prior bike ped plan and updates 2014 and 2018. We talked about several projects, recommendations in those plans that are moving ahead or have been funded, just the status of those. And I think that one of the things that this committee can do, and that this ideally is a tool for that, is to make a case for that. So yesterday, Peter Rice was sort of walking through the different projects, and I'd asked about the connection from the Route 1 Lafayette Road, New Hampshire DOT project that ends at Wilson Road, about connections through to further into downtown. And he said there's a project that's, I guess, being designed that will provide a link, I think, via Sagamore Avenue. Does that ring a bell through urban forestry or
Oh,
That
there's a
corridor?
side trail on Elwyn Road,
Yeah,
and that is the next phase of that is to connect through Tucker's Cove to Sagamore.
yeah, that's what he was talking about. So that would be the sort of thing that would be really great to support. If not that, then something similar to that, using some of these guidelines like the equity, that it is a way of providing bike access for people living in some of the less expensive, affordable housing that's either in place or that will be built in that corridor. I mean, that to bring that point up is something that this could help do, as well as referencing greenhouse gas reductions in support of the cap, because those bike trips will replace some car trips.
So on that note, do we have CIP project submissions, or do we want to do a further dive into efforts already out there and how we support them in relation to the cap, or
Yeah,
What
what?
are the what's the deadline for citizen?
It's changing. I think it's the end of September. Somewhere in September. Might come up on the webpage if you go to CIP.
I saw earlier that it was.
And of course, with that group last night has a lot of ideas, well thought out ideas for walking, biking projects. So I think
Yeah.
the word is how strained the budget is, that there's not
Well, that's
much
the thing
money.
I was gonna say. It's
September 20th.
citizens' requests are people's ideas. They often are people's ideas like near their house or something. December 20th.
The special meeting.
What?
So our next meeting is September 26th. And these are
Right.
due.
Right, but what I was gonna say is that, I mean, you could come up with ideas as citizen requests, but a lot of those go unanswered because there's usually an effort to cut back on what's in the CIP and the budget rather than adding new things in. So I think it might be more fruitful to look at what's in there already.
Yeah.
And say why it's supported by this new policy.
Or to, as part of CAP implementation, so to start thinking about projects for the
Yeah.
next year.
And talking about projects for the next year, certainly, yeah. And that might be a strategy too, is you put a request a project be looked at in an out year to get it in, or have a counselor bring it in, or someone, in a department, or,
Yeah.
But it's not available to look at for a while yet, right?
right, it's not, yeah, I mean, last year's.
And most of it,
Well, last year's is, and a lot of last year's had stuff for this year. So
right,
if you look at
and I
last
remember
year's.
from the previous processes that a lot of them are public works. Just
Yeah,
because the
it's just-
nature of
yeah, it's-
capital and.
That's where the
equipment and-
money goes
Yeah.
to support,
So
basically maintain things in the city is what a large part of it is.
for example, in the CAP on the transportation. What's it called? Pathway? Or the transportation projects, there's one that is to update the bike ped plan, so that's already underway and funded.
Yep.
But there also is one, I think, to do a feasibility study of a shared mobility type of thing. And so it seems like that's something that could be worked on for the next year's CAP. I mean, and there are different ways of funding that. It could be funded through the Rockingham Planning Commission using the flexible federal funds. It could be funded using some of the dedicated federal funds in the IRA Act, but it's something that would tie directly into implementing the CAP. And on the other sectors, there's similar projects. Yeah, the feasibility study to identify projects that would identify or replace fixed route public transit service, depending on the results of the study, commit to developing one or more pilot projects. So that seems like that could be supported through a new CAP, and by referencing the CAP and by using those guidelines in terms of equity, greenhouse gas reduction, et cetera, would help make a case for that.
Yeah, and the committee would you say that the 20th?
20th. That's when they're due for CIP.
Committee is until the 24th.
We're 26th September is when
But
we're
you,
meeting.
it's in there now. You could vote to support it. now.
Is it in,
No, it's in this.
it's in this?
Yeah.
But it's not,
CIP
in-
isn't a draft yet.
yeah. I mean, do people propose things for a CIP knowing that they won't be funded this year, but at least it'll get them on the table for the next year?
I think so.
Yeah.
Or I know so. Yeah, certainly. It's a mix. And some things people put in for this year, but then it gets pushed out.
Along that line, I've sort of lost track about the transfer station. The new transfer station. There-
That's,
I feel like that is something that this committee should,
I'm just smiling because over a decade it's been,
I know, that's why I've lost track.
Yeah.
I feel like it keeps getting,
yeah, something easy to push.
I
in.
think it just
Yeah.
gets so expensive and it gets more expensive and it gets pushed out. A lot of items in the CAP and the CIP that happens too.
yeah, so I would just. I don't know how we proceed, but it seems like it'd be worthwhile at looking what's already in the CIP beyond transportation stuff, which you are knowledgeable, and other efforts that we could support or encourage them to. Yeah, just move forward on, or
So would we do that individually, referencing the cap and using these guidelines as a tool, or would the committee want to recommend a set of projects for the next?
I think one thing that was discussed during the city council work session is that and it's getting late for me, so I might be misremembering this, but the CIP stating if it's from the cap or not. Does that sound accurate, Peter? Or am I making this
I
up?
think the CIP would state the action, because it does talk about where actions are,
Yeah,
how they're supported. And so if it was an action that was in the cap, it would say, it would probably have the strategy number from climate action plan strategy.
so would it be helpful for you, Peter, to have the sustainable committee look through what's in the prior cap and flag things which we think fall under different,
In the prior CIP,
yeah, in the prior CIP, which fall under different codes in the cap?
yeah, if people are willing. It's kind of a long effort, but yeah.
And to Bill's point, is that something we do collectively and try to have a special meeting, or is that something that we
Well, that
do
wouldn't be needed
independently?
for September 20th.
Right.
That's thing that's
supported
already
there, right?
in the cap, that's in the CIP, that's gonna be just providing input to Peter to actually include in the book
Okay.
that comes out. So that doesn't need to be done by the 20th, It's something we could still do, which is individually, if you have time, we could go through it, and then as a group, we could go over it. And then the next meeting, if people do more, we could go over it again, saying, hey, here are some things in the CIP which are related to the cap, which should be annotated.
Seems like that would fit in very nicely in the responsibilities of
Yeah,
this committee,
exactly.
because
Be helping
if
staff
the cap is going to be
identify.
implemented, like you said at the city council meeting, implemented. The prioritization is what needs to follow next, and if the sustainability committee wants to look at that and say, okay, for appropriate for the CIP, here are 5 projects that
Yeah.
we think are top priority for implementing the cap consistent with the sustainability committee's sustainability principles. Because
Yeah,
that's.
and
what
it's a
this is
6-year
cool.
planning document, so it doesn't have to be just new things to go in right away. In fact, it's probably better if you can provide that support.
So on September 20th, it's the draft that the planning
It's the
department.
end
puts
of
out.
the citizen request period. So the citizens
Okay.
fill out a form and submit it, and then that ends that.
And then the planning committee then puts together a draft based on all that input.
Based on input from staff, department, all the different departments, police, fire, public works, planning, finance, library, everybody's got their projects. Things they need to get done, or they're mandated to get done, or whatever has to get done. And then the citizen requests are looked at as well.
And that is what the feds call fiscally constrained, meaning that the next version of that is something where there's adequate funding and it's a recommended set of projects.
They're recommended to the budget. So the big change this year is that the city council, the plan is that they'll adopt the capital improvement plan before December, which in the case of a year with an election year, that means that council started the CIP and finished the CIP. And if they leave office, then the new council gets a complete
Mhm.
CIP to work with. They could change it, but it's kind of a,
And the budget isn't fixed as a starting point. The budget then is something that needs
Then
to be
that-
approved based on what's recommended in the CIP.
the CIP recommends things for the budget. Yep.
Yeah.
And then the budget has to be adopted. So
So then if the budget gets reduced, then there's a need to figure out which projects to delay or to drop.
yep,
But the capital budget is separate from the operating budget.
Correct.
right.
Okay, so my understanding is that for anyone who's interested, we are going to look at the current CIP and see if there are items in there already that fall in line with the cap that we could express our support and encouragement of moving forward. And then come back and discuss that at next month's meeting, because it does not need to be done by the 20th in that case.
Correct.
And then maybe there's also, I feel like for me, it seems like we should have a little bit of a wish list of like.
Yeah. Great.
this would be nice to see the city in future years consider these projects that would be.
Top
aligned with
priorities,
the-
and these are ones that are important.
Yeah,
We might, think in my mind, in the cap, they have items that are high, low, and medium, or whatever it is. I think if I were to do it myself, I'm thinking, I'd go to all the high ones and see how the highest ones that is recommended in the cap correlates with anything in the CIP. Might be a way to, I was thinking, if I were a researcher and I was doing it, that's fine.
So just to clarify, Jess, by looking at the current CIP, we don't need to propose new projects, but we're adding a sustainability emphasis to projects that are already there to support them based on the cap and the sustainability principles.
Correct.
That's good. Sounds good, and then that's an exercise that could be followed up the next year with those projects that don't go forward or adding new projects from the cap.
great.
That's also a way to educate ourselves on the next letter that we put out. We could say, the committee is going to be looking at the cap and the CIP and see recommendations, so other people would, because all of us, if we look at it, we can be better informed, make good decisions.
And those principles potentially should be applied to the whole CIP. I mean, some projects may not need much in the way of principles applied, but potentially everything in that could be considered in terms of supporting the cap or equity impacts. And it probably is done to some degree anyway, and always has been done, but maybe this is a way of adding some substance to it, formalizing it.
Great.
And we haven't talked about the operating budget, just to put that out there.
Okay, so I think that is anybody else have anything about the CIP or project submissions or anything like that?
So do we want to spend time on the next meeting, maybe as a group discussing
Yes,
things that are in the CIP crosswalk to the cap?
yes.
Yeah, question on that, because I know I'm going to be absent and I'm here tonight, I know that I could send some things to Kate before this meeting. But given that so many people are absent tonight, they won't have that knowledge. You know, they don't know to do it ahead.
I was gonna
So-
ask if Kate would send out an email to
Yeah.
committee members who are not here
Explaining
and
this.
say, in prep for next
you
month's meeting.
Also include a link to both the
CIP.
prior CIP and the cap.
Right.
And a link to the guidelines to consider in your review,
Adopt the guidelines.
Seal on them.
Yeah.
the final guidelines.
So it's educating all of us, and you could say, because you'd be modeling great, because I can't be there.
Yeah,
Because we're doing this, here's what I'm doing, and that will remind me, oh, okay.
And this is pure cap implementation, really. I mean, that's probably a top priority for this committee.
So if I'm looking at the agenda correctly, we have about 15 minutes or so to talk about committee topics, how we build our agenda. Unless anybody else has anything else that we've missed or wants to bring up.
Did we get a chance to say how good that health community conversation was?
No, but thank
It was
you.
excellent.
So Bert, do you want to lead this part about how we build our agenda and the function of committee notes and so on?
Yeah, again, it was like signing the letter brought up the idea of what does the chair do and who creates the agenda, how do we do it? So prior to this, when we were just a blue room committee, anybody sent it in or we came in and we wrote them up on the board. And I still think that that's fine. However, now Kate is doing a yeoman's job. I say, Kate, you're doing something that the only reason I agreed to be chair of the committee because somebody else who was on the committee said, I'll take notes and do it. And then she got off the next month. So we're doing, it's 10 years later what somebody told me they would do because it's not my skill. So the question I'm asking you. We have, what is your understanding of how we build agenda now? Because, we've been sending him to Kate and she puts it on, right? So anybody in the committee can put anything on. Are we all in agreement with that?
No.
Anybody on the committee? When we come here, although the meetings are getting fuller, I'm still open that if somebody has an important item, they can put that on also. And now then it comes to how do people who come to the committee or want to get stuff on the committee? So if somebody says to me, Bert, I heard you're chairman of the committee and I want to make a presentation on pollinators. So that now becomes a position I haven't been in before, but I think is starting to happen. I'm assuming I could say, just use my judgment, say, I think that's good. Or I could say, that's a great topic. And since there's no urgency, let me see what the committee thinks. Because they might be thinking, I want to deal with light pollution. I mean, people come up with all kinds of things. Does anybody have any feeling when I get something like that?
I think both of what you said are correct. Where if someone comes to you and you think it should be on the agenda, as a committee member, you could ask Kate to put it on the agenda, it's on the agenda. But if someone comes to you and you're not sure about it, you could bring it up during the next meeting and say, no, there's this additional item. Maybe if we have time to get to tonight, or you could request it. We could discuss putting it on the next agenda as a committee. That makes sense.
I think that makes sense unless it's something that's really urgent, like it needs to be on the next meeting. It's really urgent. Then I think that's where your judgment as chair, I think, makes a lot of sense. But let's say on the pollinators, I think just didn't you come and suggest adding that, and we
Yep,
talked
and then
about it
came
and
back
said that
from
would
our
be a good
review
idea.
later. Yeah.
Well, the thing I would add is, let's say if any of us are going to suggest a topic for a next meeting, or someone contacts you, or you send them the guidelines and say, this gives you an idea of what the focus is of this committee. Take a look at this and see if it fits in. And I think that the pollinators would have been fine, but if they'd looked at that, they might have thought a little bit about the cap and equity, maybe greenhouse gas, and maybe they could have added something related to that. But I think that's one of the things that the guidelines would be a useful tool, just to let people know what this committee does. Because I got here a bit early before the pollinators, because I was chairing that meeting, and these two delightful pollinator representatives came in and they said, what's this committee? You know, what's it all about? What's your focus? That sounds great. That's a nice fit. But having sent them something like that ahead, or, you know, if any of us has someone contacting us, we could talk to them a little bit and send them that and say, how's your fit?
For me, I think a bigger issue is that now that the cap is here, as a committee, we could be figuring priorities, and we will be generating things for the agenda that we're working on and pushing. Not just responding to people coming to us or you and saying, could I come to your meeting? We are going to be generating the topics for the agenda. And I think, Jess, did you do the notes for July?
Yes.
Because at the end of the July notes, I wasn't sure if Jessica did them or who. She had initial agenda for the August meeting because so many things came up in the July meeting that there was follow-up in August. I thought that was really helpful. I hadn't seen that before. So that's like a business process, but I think the bigger process is that this group really become immersed and familiar with the cap, and then generating things that the priority things we want to see the city doing.
That's a good shift of mind for me, because when I say from the Blue Ribbon Committee, now different committees have actual functions, and you're kind of identifying a real working function, so we might not have time for people to come in and talk about very nice things,
Right.
but we have really, I like that.
Yeah.
We might give preference to someone who could come in and elaborate on one of the
Right.
topics that
So-
are in the.
There's one warning I would make about the climate action plan. I think it's great. But some of the things that don't have high priority are going to be important to this group. It's just that they weren't so measurable in terms of greenhouse gases. Like some of the things to do with adaptation and resilience are the best examples to give. We don't want to lose track of those things just because they're low. We might pick a couple of those to work on. So.
Yeah, and I would sort of just echo both what Effie and Bill said. I think our agendas are filling up. Now we have all these things that we're following up on from month to month and following through, so we don't have as much time to just say, sure, come on in and join us. I do think that's valuable because it creates collaborations and connections and does what we wanted to do, but I think there might need to be a little bit more of a procedure on the presenter's end to see if they're in line with what we're doing and to do a little history and make sure they're in the right place. Maybe we're not who they need to talk to. Maybe they need to present to the Conservation Commission or Trees and Greenery or somebody else in the city that can address their issue or already is addressing their issue and they're just not aware yet.
The guidelines make very prominent right at the top, the priority for the cap and the greenhouse gas reductions and the adaptation.
On the committee topics, there's one that I added, the committee membership that we need to build up, and everybody knows that. But I just want to remind the group of, we need a liaison to the Energy Advisory Committee too. So I don't know if anyone on that committee, if we could convince them to be on our committee too. That'd be
So the
wonderful.
liaison is both ways. So someone to this committee and someone from this committee to the energy.
Yeah.
We need a representative on this committee that's also, yeah, I think it says that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if someone
okay.
here joined that committee,
Which
that would
Herb
accomplish-
did,
but Herb left this committee.
right,
Yeah.
and went to that committee.
Yeah.
So my understanding of the agenda is, it'll prioritize or start with things from the previous meeting that we need to follow up with. Maybe anything that the committee needs to address urgently, like doing the letter in support of the 100-acre woods or those kinds of things that are time sensitive. And then there could be an other business type thing for anything else that people want to bring up during the meeting or proposals for future meetings that sort of
Yeah.
sound like a
And I
reasonable.
think the update sections, I like that. And I think it's fine for community engagement to say, nothing new this month.
Yeah.
But to have it there kind of as a reminder that we're checking in every month. Yeah.
Along those lines, with only 6 minutes left, we are kind of at a point where the rotation system isn't really functioning. And so that's a whole nother topic, but I think specifically for next meeting, Josh, are you okay with
Yes.
facilitating? And then let's put on the agenda item, getting a rotation. I think when the September, so, yeah, we have the high school students back. So maybe we could create another more.
Do we know that the high school students are coming back?
Yeah, I think they said that they were, the delegates were already chosen and they're ready to come on
And does Lee handle
board
that
rep,
as
Lee.
a school
Lee's the school
representative?
board rep.
Last year I went to the Eco Club
Oh,
and just,
Canadian, right?
what?
It's been a year since you went.
Yeah, I did that last fall at the start of the year, because I don't know if anybody made it in September. I can't remember when I went exactly, but I just kind of checked in and said, hey, we really value you
Yeah.
being there. We're hoping you're coming.
Yeah, 'cause there
And
was
kind
a
of
new
reconnected with the staff.
Yeah,
So,
staff that
yeah,
wasn't at
Anna.
yeah.
So I haven't been over there, so I'm hoping September, but anyway, if you facilitate, we can see. What do we do for note taker, wait till then, or?
I'll take notes. That's fine. I did it in July and I feel like I figured out something that's not overwhelming, but kind of bullets the actions and the tentative agenda. I
could-
don't want to do it every month, but I
If
will.
you could put, if you put a template together for, people taking notes. That, what Effie was saying, that'd be a big help.
Just really the outline that you see for successful notes,
I can do that.
6
Thank you,
top.
okay, that's good.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything like to talk about in the last 5 minutes?
What do you have for check now?
Should we make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
I.